Andrew Scheer, let's begin with your decision earlier this week. You said you will not grant any further interviews to Rebel Media for as long as its editorial direction remains as is. So what is it specifically about the editorial direction that led you to that decision?
Well, first and foremost, it's very important to me to send that very clear signal that the Conservative Party of Canada has always been a party that is inclusive and tolerant and open to members of every different ethnic community that call Canada home and that chose to make this wonderful country where they want to grow and raise their families. And I was just disgusted by what I saw in Charlottesville on the weekend, that kind of hatred and vile displays of intolerance just need to be denounced. And I understand that there's a fine line when it comes to journalism between reporting on facts, reporting on what's going on, and giving a platform or in any way kind of legitimizing what may be going on. And I felt that line was crossed on the weekend. And so I just decided, I'm not going to lend my platform to those or institutions or outlets that may be doing that. So, I'm here with a positive message, and I want to get that message out in a positive way to as many Canadians as I can.
What was it specifically that you saw that led you to the decision?
As I said, I just felt that line between saying, okay, here's what's going on, here's an important event that may be happening. People obviously need to be aware when there are good things happening, when there are bad things happening. That's what media outlets do. They cover on events. But when people are given an extra platform or in any way an outlet starts to concur or legitimize some of the aspects around that, that's not where I want to go. I don't want to see.
So you felt the reporter was
anybody with those kinds of views have that.
So the fact that they were on the air, the white supremacists were on the air, I mean, what was it specifically that you saw where you said, okay, I can't be part of this? What was the moment?
It was just, as I said, it was the nature of the coverage. It was the way that, in any way that that outlet or the people involved in producing those shows kind of went beyond just saying, here's what's happening and gave that an extra legitimacy or voice, in any way kind of concurring or validating some of the points. And I felt that was going on while that was happening. I'm an open, accessible politician. I don't think you want politicians or prime ministers or premiers or, members of parliament deciding what is or what isn't legitimate news outlets or journalism. We believe in freedom of the press. Even the Liberals fought to make sure that the Rebel was included at the United Nations climate change talks. I think Canada is, respects that history of an independent profession when it comes to the press. But when it comes to granting exclusive interviews, when it comes to kind of, seeking an outlet where I would talk directly to get my vision out, what my positive message is for Canadians, based on what happened on the weekend, I just think that going forward, I'll be looking at other types of outlets that don't, blur that line or cross that line into giving that kind of legitimacy to those kinds of groups.
Editor-in-Chief of Policy Options, Jennifer Ditchburn, wrote this week. She said, quote, "Interesting that none of the Rebel posts on women were enough to cause distancing, calling the federal environment minister Barbie, rating system for women, etc. Why wasn't that enough to distance yourself?"
Look, members of parliament, politicians of all stripes, they talk to. I try to be accessible. I try to answer questions from people who are interested in hearing what I have to say. I don't follow what every outlet puts on air. I don't look at every story they write. Obviously, what happened on the weekend in Charlottesville was one that culminated. That was. Had a lot of attention. It was a very dark moment in society in the United States, and one that kind of exposed the very worst of those who have those intolerant ideas. And there's just no room for that in Canadian society. I think every member of every party needs to denounce that, as I did immediately after those events transpired. So that's what this is about. This is important to remember that, as I said, you don't want politicians deciding who is and who isn't legitimate news organization. People are free to choose who they grant interviews to. even the Rebel itself said I'm not their kind of conservative. So, you know, they've made that determination as well.
Okay.
And as I said, going forward, I'm looking to get my positive message on what I believe conservative policies can do to improve the lives of all Canadians going forward.
I understand what you're saying, but at the beginning of this answer, you said, well, I haven't seen everything. I obviously can't read everything that's out there, and I understand that. But if you had known that Rebel had said those things that were disparaging to women, would you have distanced yourself for that reason as well?
Yeah, look, again, it's what any particular commentator, what any particular contributor, you know, may say or not. I obviously would condemn anything that would be anti-women, anything that would not be inclusive, as I have many times in the past, as our Conservative Party has always stood for the equality of all Canadians. You know, we're the party of first. We're the first senator of Pakistani origin. We're the first cabinet minister, the first turban Sikh to sit in cabinet. We're the party of openness and inclusiveness. And so I just feel, you know, at this time it's important to send that very clear signal. I'll be talking to, you know, I've already spoken to thousands of Canadians across the country in every different corner. I've made myself available to many different news organizations, from ethnic media to national media to regional media. I want to bring my message out to as many Canadians as possible. But after the events on the weekend, when, you know, I believe that line was crossed, and looking at the overall direction that outlet has been going, I've decided that I won't be granting those interviews to that particular outlet.
To Rebel. I want to read you part of the memo that Ezra Levant wrote to his staff. He says, "We are not alt-right. That term now effectively means racism, anti-Semitism, intolerance of neo-Nazism." He is clearly distancing himself from what happened in Charlottesville. Why is this not good enough for you?
Well, again, you know, he's responsible for the decisions that he made and the oversight that he provides to his reporters. It's very important to remember that those groups have nothing to do with the conservative principles of freedom, equality, tolerance, openness, inclusiveness. So, you know, it is an undercurrent that exists that conservatives denounce. You know, conservatives are the party of individual liberty and freedom and small government, and we don't, you know, we fight against those very ideas. We celebrate the history that Canadian veterans have had fighting against those hateful ideas that started in Europe in the 40s, and we have to be very vigilant that we don't allow that to happen. So, you know, he can speak for himself. He can speak for his outlet. As I mentioned, they've already, you know, stated that I'm not their kind of conservative. I have a positive vision that I want people to aspire to, and join me in building a better Canada for future generations of Canadians, and that means an open, tolerant, and inclusive Canada.
Your campaign manager was on the board of Rebel. You have given many interviews in the past. What was it you liked about them before?
As I said, you know, I talk to many different kinds of news outlets. I bring my message to as many people are interested in hearing from it. And as I mentioned, you know, even associations of Canadian journalists fought to make sure that outlet had the same access as others. So clearly, you know, you don't want politicians picking and choosing what constitutes legitimate journalism or you know, the types of people that should have access to public policymakers. But when it comes to, you know, sitting down and granting those types of interviews based on what happened, I won't be doing that going forward.
Yeah, that wasn't quite the question I asked, but lucky for you, we're out of time, so I can't ask it again.
Well,
Conservative Party Leader Andrew Scheer joining me from Markham, Ontario. Thank you.